For Victims and Villains, my name is Josh.
And I'm Ashley.
And today we are talking about Cory Barker's Obsession. So Obsession is the classic story of boy fawning over girl, makes a wish. Much like wishes do, things go bad.
Initial thoughts. It was interesting. I really did feel like it is true to its title. You get to feel the entire ride of Obsession. So if you haven't ever felt that before, it is a good little brief way to kind of feel it in the, hour and a half
50 minutes, something like that.
time span. Yeah, something like that. And you get to really see the emotions of all the characters and feel the emotions of all the characters right alongside with them. So I did enjoy the movie for, really being able to connect to the audience in all ways. At least for me, there were times where I was laughing. There were times where I was sad. It surprised me at every turn.
I agree a lot with what you're saying. But for me, I really loved this movie. I thought that it lived up to the hype. This movie was way funnier than I thought it was going to be. And you talk about it being surprising, I think the humor was the thing that was really surprising most to me. Solely because humor would come out of these really awkward moments in the film that you really couldn't do anything in that moment but laugh.
I think for me, I was dropping a lot of WTFs and why and using so many hand gestures in that movie. So yeah, there were times though where the humor it hit, but it was a kind of humor, and it was kind of nice to see because this was a premiere, the reactions to those around us as well.
I think Inde Navarrette, who plays Nikki in this film, is kind of really stole the show for me. She has this film as a whole kind of walks this tightrope walk between being really intense, anxiety, but also the awkward humor that we've been talking about, and she could just change at a moment's notice. And I think that I've seen Cory Barker talk about this in interviews, but really finding the right person to take that role really made or break this film, and I think she knocks it out of the park.
I disagree. I think the character development is there, but I don't think she was the star of the show. I think she read her script, and I think she did it. And I think that's about it. I think Michael Johnston, who is Bear, I think he was phenomenal. He was in Teen Wolf, for any of you Teen Wolf fans. But I felt every emotion alongside. There are very few actors that are, kind of not very well known in the movie industry that can actually make me feel that. And never felt that watching Teen Wolf, but this movie, it was a roller coaster for me. And I think Indy is okay. I think she's kind of the new Sydney Sweeney coming up for a lot of people, whereas Michael Johnston just blew everyone out of the park. You see the raw, real emotion, and you also you're seeing a kid who kind of has some neurodivergence in him, and so I think a lot of that really helps to showcase that character of Mayor.
I think Johnston delivers a top tier performance. This was my introduction to him as an actor. I really thought that him alongside with the rest of this cast is incredible and phenomenal. I think that's one of the things that Barker's always really done well as a director, is always kind of found the right person to bring the right parts to life. And I think as a whole, I think this is probably one of the most unique scripts I've read. I feel like the concept as a whole is something we've seen time and time again. I mean, both of us grew up on 90s Aladdin. For those of you guys that grew up in horror, Wishmaster, also kind of the same deal.
It gave me Big vibes. It gave me Tom Hanks, like, full on, but like if Big went bad.
Yeah. Like, but like that's the thing, is that this is a concept that, you know, we've named 3 movies in the span of 30 seconds that have kind of divulged into the similar type of story beats.
But it was still completely separate.
Yeah.
Do you think, like, while there were similarities, I'm not entirely sure I've ever seen a film quite like this. Honestly, make you feel the obsession right alongside. There were moments where it felt very real life.
I think for me, I think the thing that really kind of elevates this movie to, like what you're saying, to where it has this like roundedness to it and this relatability in the way that it also, with having those features, the way that it crawls under your skin, is the way that it's 2 things. It's the score by Rock Burwell that kind of, for me, I felt like really heightened some of those more intense moments, especially the closer that we got to the end and the more Nikki kind of divulged more and more into the obsession. But also it's the way that they would specifically light Nikki in certain shots. There are so many shots where Nikki's in frame, but there's this darkness that's around her that is so hard to like really pin her out, and it really adds to the mystery, the anxiety, the intensity. And when you see kind of her stepping into the frame a little bit further, it's kind of this oh shit moment. It happens a couple of times in there, but I think the scene in particular that I'm referencing is the first night after she comes back to Bear's house. And when the camera focuses on Bear, it's very light, and it's kind of has this like not quite muted colors, but like it's noticeably like how you would imagine a room lit in almost like a documentary style. And then the camera would phase over to her, and she just had like heavy shadows. And I think that really worked in the favor of a lot of making this feel authentic.
I definitely agree with the lighting and the shadowing. I think it was a really cool use of like something that you don't really, or at least in my experience, that I haven't really seen in a lot of horror movies other than like the very older classic horror movies. I do disagree about the score though. I could not connect with it. And I mean, you know, my music brain, if the music doesn't hit, it doesn't land right for me. But I focused so much less on the music because it was just kind of shit. But the silences that are in that movie
so uncomfortable
speak volumes to any of the score, and I can't sway me otherwise.
This movie has a really uncomfortable factor about it that really kind of drew me to the edge of my seat. And there were moments within this film that just either the visuals that you were seeing on the screen or the way that there was just this, like you said, like the silence existing between these 2 characters was so incredibly uncomfortable. With that, we're ready to run this one through our Rorschach rating scale.
I'm going to give Obsession a 3.5 out of 5. I was prepared for it to be way more horror and bloody and gory than it was. I'm not saying there's not that. There definitely is that. But as someone who doesn't like those things, like Send Help was very hard for me. This was very easy. It's not your typical horror movie. It's not scary. And I think the only reason, and it sucks, but I think part of the reason why I've given it such a low score is it hit a little too close to home.
I'm going to go ahead and give Obsession a 4.5 out of 5. I think for a debut from Curry Barker, this shows real promise here for him as a prominent voice within the genre moving forward. I thought the use of comedy here was really smart. Use of silence and shadows, also really smart. Score, performances, all really landed for me. I don't have quite the experiences that you have with this film. We'll kind of expand upon that in spoiler talk, but for me, I think this movie is really unique. It kind of takes a really familiar concept and really reinvents it in a fresh way. Obsession opens May 15th, but you guys can check out the link in our show notes below to find out when it is playing near you and where. Although in the show notes below, you guys will also find links to our mental health resource library, our podcasts on our podcast network, more movie reviews like this, social media, and that subscribe button. So until next time, remember to stay classy.